Every so often, there's a psychology topic that gets a lot of attention on social media. And right now, boundaries is that topic. Boundaries is having its time in the spotlight, and as a psychologist, I am 100% here for it. Boundaries are so incredibly important if you want to live a healthy and meaningful life. But lately, I've noticed that something is missing from the conversation about boundaries. There's something that we're not talking about, and it is critical that you know this if you are going to move forward with the concept of boundaries in your life. So today, I'm going to talk about that. Stick around, this is a good one. Hey y'all, what's up and welcome back. In case you are new here or we don't know each other, my name is Dr. Allison and I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I have pretty much made it my life mission to really simplify psychology. So to break down the science and the research that we have about living healthy, meaningful lives. So that's what we're doing today. We are talking about the B word, boundaries. What'd you think I was going to talk about? And if you are new to the idea of boundaries, the Cliff Notes version is this. Boundaries is about setting limits as a way to protect something. You can set boundaries with yourself, you can set boundaries with others, or you can set boundaries with resources, your time, your energy, money. Anything that's worthy of being protected is included in our discussion of boundaries. And when we talk about boundaries, there's almost always another word in front of it. And that is the word setting. Setting boundaries. That is a phrase, that is a concept. We hear those two words together so often. Setting boundaries is about putting a limit in place as a way to try to shift or change or stop a behavior. So it might mean setting boundaries with a friend or a family member to let them know that a behavior can't continue. Setting limits might mean telling your boss that you're not going to be responding to emails after hours. Setting limits with yourself might mean that you stop scrolling through social media for hours at nighttime. These are all examples of setting boundaries, and they're difficult because they're aimed at changing something, and well, change is hard. So drawing that line, acknowledging that that behavior has to change and setting a limit, that can be really hard. But what no one seems to be talking about and what is so important for all of us to know and remember is that setting boundaries isn't the hard part. The hard part is holding boundaries. Holding boundaries means sticking to the limits that you set. It means enforcing and holding the consequences that you said were going to happen if your boundary wasn't respected. Holding boundaries is about staying firm no matter what kind of pushback you get. And let me keep it real, you're gonna get pushback, right? You are gonna experience resistance because otherwise the boundary wouldn't have been necessary to set in the first place. So let me give you an example that I think is really gonna help you see the difference between setting a boundary and holding it. I am currently the very proud mama of a 2-year-old son. Now, 2-year-olds are all about, pushing limits, testing new things. And in the morning, while my son eats breakfast, one of his newest behaviors is to bang his little sippy cup on his tray. Now, when this happens, it makes a very cool noise and milk sprays out the top. And then he can splash it around on his little tray and he thinks it's the coolest thing ever. But it's not the coolest thing ever. Milk goes everywhere, and generally I would like my son not to be a 16-year-old kid banging his, cup at a restaurant someday. So when this happens, I say, hey buddy, we don't want to bang our cup on the tray, okay? Cups are for drinking. And then he looks at me, and I say, if we bang your cup, we're gonna have to take it away, okay? We could try it again, but if you bang your cup again, we're gonna take it away. Now, it's not really that hard to say that, right? I'm pretty calm, I'm pretty cool when I say that. If you bang your cup, we're gonna take it away. That's the setting of the boundaries. But then he looks at me and he gets this look in his eye and it's this little smile. And anyone who's a parent is gonna know that look. And then what does he do? Bang, bang, bang. He bangs his cup. Here comes the hard part. Because I said if he banged his cup again, we were gonna take it away. So now I have to hold that boundary. So I say, oh, buddy, we said if we bang our cup, we're going to take it away. So mama's going to take that. And the minute I take that cup out of his little fingers, all hell breaks loose, right? He cries, he yells, he wants his cup, he reaches for it. And in that moment, I just want the madness to stop. The easiest thing to do in that moment would be to give him the dang cup back, and then he stops crying. But I set a boundary, and now the hard part is holding that boundary. I'm getting pushback, I'm getting resistance, but I'm working really hard to change this behavior. So holding the boundary is so critical. If you're not a parent and you're like, I don't know, this example seems weird, let me give you an example I know all of us will understand. Imagine you sit down after dinner in front of the TV and you've got a package of Oreos. I love me some Oreos, I'm not gonna lie. So you sit down with the Oreos and you open it up and you say, you know what? I'm only gonna have 2 Oreos, okay? You set a boundary. I'm gonna have 2 Oreos. It's not really that hard to say that. I'm gonna have 2 Oreos. Okay, that sounds good. 2 Oreos. You set your boundary. Not too hard. You eat your 2 Oreos, but then you want more. And you look down at the package and the sleeve of Oreos all lined up, and suddenly you're like, well, I'll just have another one. This is where holding the boundary comes in place. You set the boundary pretty easy, but now there's all this temptation and there's all this pushback. Your brain just wants more Oreos. It's the holding of the boundary. That is the hardest part. It's the most difficult part, but it is also the part where the most magic and change and growth happens. The reason that I'm talking about this today is because I think when we talk about setting boundaries, there's so much information about how do you set a boundary and what's a realistic boundary. And I love those conversations. But I think it paints an unrealistic picture that you're going to set a boundary and that everyone's going to magically be on board with that. That all of a sudden everyone's going to fall in line and respect that boundary. And that is not realistic. If you set a boundary, especially a healthy one, a good boundary, I'm going to just about guarantee you are going to get pushback. People aren't going to like it. There's going to be resistance. Your, hunger cues are going to kick in. You're saying, I just want more Oreos. That resistance, that pushback is almost always going to happen when you set a healthy boundary. And when we don't talk about it, I think we do ourselves a disservice because then we've got no idea that a wave of tough stuff is coming when we're asked to hold the boundary. When you set a boundary, your toddler might yell. Your boss might ask you to come in earlier, stay late, or respond to emails for just a few hours. Your family member might continue to ask or pull or beg for the thing that you've said you won't do anymore. In some ways, that pushback is actually a sign that you're setting a healthy boundary. But I want you to be prepared. When you set that boundary, that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is what's going to come after when people push. And I want you to know you're not doing anything wrong. You're not crazy. You're not bad at setting boundaries. It's just that setting boundaries isn't really that hard. Holding them, oh my gosh, that is the hard part. Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, Dr. Allison, I get it. I'm on board. Setting boundaries, kind of tough. Holding boundaries, really difficult. I know that's going to be hard. I'm on board. Ugh, how do I hold boundaries? It's so hard when I set a boundary. What do I do? How do I do that? I want to help you do that better, and I'm going to release a part 2, but here's what I'm going to ask you to do in the meantime. In the next couple of weeks, pay attention when you set a boundary and then when you try to hold it, right? Pay attention to what happens when you tell someone, no, not now. You shut down your social media use after a couple hours, whatever it is. When you set that boundary, pay attention to the feeling that comes up. Probably going to feel it in your gut, a little ugh, right? Pay attention to that. I want you to realize what's so difficult, what gets in the way, what's the pushback, what's the resistance. That's going to help the part 2 be much more effective. So pay attention to that. If you have an idea of that right now, I feel like, oh my gosh, I know what's hard for me in holding boundaries, leave it in a comment because I want the next video, part 2, to truly be tailored to those of you that want to better hold your boundaries. So if you know what's hard about holding boundaries right now, drop it in a comment below. If you're not really sure and you need to do a little trial and error this week of holding a boundary and then seeing what comes up, seeing how you do, seeing what's hard. Do that and then come back and let me know. Whatever you're trying to protect, yourself, your sanity, your bank account, your energy, whatever it is that you're trying to protect with those boundaries, it's worth it. And you set that boundary for a reason, and I want you to honor that. So hang in there, set the boundary, and then prepare for the hardest and the most important part, holding that boundary. Thank y'all so much for being here. I am so grateful. There are so many ways for you to spend your time and so much content for you to watch on YouTube, but you chose to show up today. So thank you. I appreciate it. If you want more good stuff like this, more simplified psychology, subscribe to my channel. You'll be the first to know about new videos. And also, you can check out my website, drallisonanswers.com. Thank you so much. I'll see you back real soon. Bye-bye.